Well, People Are Talking was a format that the Westinghouse stations all had. I think there were about 6 Westinghouse stations. And in Baltimore, it was co-hosted by Oprah Winfrey, who left that show and disappeared into this well of obscurity. Poor woman. But in Boston, they had host Nancy Merrill, and she went, after a while, she left, and she was replaced by a team, Buzz Luttrell and Jan Jones, and then Buzz himself hosted the show for a while. And I would fill in. I would fill in occasionally. And Buzz had a news background and wasn't always as comfortable with the range of, some days it would be a newsy show, other days it would be completely nonsensical. One of the nicknames for the show when Nancy did it, less so when Buzz and I did it, but when Nancy did it, the nickname for the show was Nuts and Sluts. that was in-house. That was the people who produced it. So Buzz ultimately left the show, and I was hired to do it in '87. And they had seen me at the station in a number of other roles, obviously filling in, and the For Today, and I was also oddly the host of the nightly lottery drawing for a while. So I loved it. I loved the format on People Are Talking because it was live, because every day was different, and it was like cramming for a college course. One day I'd be talking to former President Jimmy Carter. The next day, one show we won a regional Emmy for, and I give great credit to WBZ for airing it live, was on Tourette syndrome, which is just a horribly difficult thing for people to deal with and has a range of intensity. And it's, there are tics involved and verbal outbursts and things like that. And in order to fully make people realize how difficult Tourette's was, they were willing to air it live. And so the following actually happened on live TV. So I'm talking to you, the viewer, and I'm saying we're about to explore Tourette syndrome, and we are airing this show live, and I just want to give you a fair warning that some of what you hear may be shocking, at which point one of the sufferers yelled, "Fuck!" And I kept looking at the camera and I said, "Case in point." And then, because the frame was about here, you could see that same person's fist coming into the frame inches from my head. So it was a show that was poignant and sort of comic in its own way, but it was a wonderful experience for me to be able to do that show. And it was a moment from that show that led to me being offered the Breakfast Time show on FX. I was talking to Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, who was and is just a charming guy and instantly makes eye contact with you and makes you feel like, you're the only person in the room. And there had just been a study that came out, or a poll that came out, I think in Time magazine, that said that of former presidents, Jimmy Carter, who had gone on to work for Habitat for Humanity and things of that nature, was held in higher regard than Ronald Reagan, who had gone on to get multi-million-dollar speeches in Japan, that he was held in higher regard than the man who beat him for the presidency. And I said, that's got to make you feel like, yeah. And I thought he'd give me a very diplomatic answer, and all that. And he looked at me and he got this wonderful twinkle in his eye and he went, yeah. And Peter Feynman told me that moment, which my agent had put on a reel, he said that you got that human moment out of a president, a former president. I wanted to meet you. So that was, but that was pure improv, pure going with your gut, all of that stuff that Tony taught me in the theater, at the Mime Theater. So it all comes back. It's all connected. So many. I remember with John Denver, the late John Denver, another person who was wonderful with instant eye contact and a firm handshake and just very much wanted to be there. He had been scheduled to be on the space shuttle where Krista McAuliffe died and the others died when it blew up. And he had composed a beautiful song. I think it was called "You Were Flying for Me" or something. You guys can Google the actual title. But we had students from Krista McAuliffe's school come down to surprise him and sing the song to him. And I get choked up now because it was and he started to cry. And he looked at me. I remember him looking at me and saying, "That wasn't fair," but he loved it. He loved it. And then, when we lost him a few years later, that was really tragic. But that was a moment I really loved because it was a genuine human moment on live TV and a real connection. You could just feel all of the energy that went into that. That the song he had written, the fact that he might have been on that flight himself, and what those students felt about him and about their teacher. There's a lot going on. That's one of the highlights.